So here we are. The government have flip-flopped from calling COVID-19 legislation regulations instead of laws. So they spent months enforcing, using the police as though they had their hands up the arse of the police, using them like puppets to enforce what we were told were laws on the Irish people in order to destroy their economy, to condemn their elderly to death, to condemn their youth to suicide, and destroy the livelihoods of hundreds of thousands of Irish people. They were the threat. The Gardaí will come and enforce the law. That was the threat. And then one of their cohort got into trouble with the same laws, and all of a sudden those laws became regulations. Not laws at all, but regulations, unenforceable by the Gardaí. So what we had was a situation where the legislative branch of our republic, which is called the Oireachtas, they made a law, and within 2 days the Oireachtas Golfing Society broke that law. They made excuses saying that they had been planning it for a month before it happened. Well, it was illegal when they started planning it, and it was illegal when they broke it. So we have the insane situation where the Oireachtas, the legislative branch of government, wrote a law that they were conspiring to break over the course of a month, and the Oireachtas Golfing Society, a group of the Oireachtas, went and broke that law in Clifden. So we have a case where our legislature is conspiring to break laws that they are writing at the same time that they're writing them. They're conspiring to break them, and then our legislature broke that law. What was the government response? Within 10 days, the government decided that there were no longer laws, that there were regulations. And what that means is that it takes it out of the purview of the judicial branch of our government. So we have 3 branches of government: the legislature, the Oireachtas, the executive, which is the government, and then the judiciary, which is the police and the courts, the judges. So one of our branches of government, the legislature, broke the law that it was writing. The other branch of government, the executive, changed the language around that from being a law to being a regulation, and then that took it out of the purview of the judiciary, because it's not the job of the judiciary to prosecute you for breaking regulations. It's the job of the judiciary to prosecute you for breaking laws. So, I think that's a pretty fair summary of what's transpired in Ireland in the last 10 days. Our government has demonstrated to the entire world how corrupt it has become. The branches of the power in our republic have demonstrated that they are nothing but a pantomime to be played out for the benefit of the elites that actually run our republic. It didn't just happen by a coincidence either. It happened because of decades of corruption within the branches of our government, so that they're so entirely corrupt and used to not ever being held accountable that they've become accustomed to getting away with it, because they think the Irish people will not stand up to them. And so far, they haven't. The legislature have betrayed, and the executive have betrayed the Gardaí. They told the good Gardaí for months that they were enforcing the law, and the Gardaí went around enforcing COVID-19 laws by using the Public Order Act. The Gardaí didn't arrest people under COVID-19 laws, because the government knew that once that went to court, it would be thrown out as being contrary to Article 15.4 of the Constitution. So instead they empowered the Gardaí to enforce COVID-19 laws using the Public Order Act. And then, when one of their elitist cabal's members got in trouble, they might face a minor conviction in a court of law, or they might face a fine in a court of law. They turned around and threw those Gardaí under the bus by saying that they weren't actually enforcing laws, and those arrests that they made were actually false arrests, because they weren't enforcing laws, they were enforcing regulations. That's what they have done. So it doesn't matter that a Garda may have spent his whole life building his career. It doesn't matter that the public has to respect the Irish Gardaí. If one of their guys get into trouble, they'll throw the whole lot of the police force under the bus. So we have a number of arrests were made using COVID-19 laws to approach people and then arrest them on public order charges. Those now are false arrests because the initial interaction was based on a regulation, not a law. So now we have a situation where good Gardaí thought they were doing their duty, but actually they were only enforcing regulations, which is not the job of the Gardaí. So what do we have to do to give the rank and file Gardaí a basis to push back against this crap that's coming from their superiors? This might sound a bit harsh, but it's the only way that a rank and file Garda can tell his superior that he's not going to be following COVID-19 regulations anymore. And what we have to do is that so the lockdown is over effectively, right? If the Gardaí can't enforce the lockdown, then there's no way to enforce the lockdown. If it's not law, it doesn't come under the purview of the Gardaí or the judiciary. So they took it out of the purview of the judiciary by calling it regulation. So if a Garda comes up to you now, if you have your business open and the Garda walks in and he says to you, look, you're in breach of COVID-19 legislation, immediately take out your phone and start filming, because you're going to be recording evidence in an unbiased manner for the courts, and be sure that you start the conversation when the phone is running. Ask the Garda to restart the conversation, because you want to gather all the evidence and you don't want it to look like that you're taking things out of context. So every interaction with the Irish Gardaí should begin with the Garda identifying himself and telling you what station he's from. And if he doesn't do that, ask him directly. Say, what's your name, officer? What number is you? What's your Garda number? And what station do you come from? Then he may say something about COVID-19 regulations now. So you tell him then that there is no power for the police to be enforcing regulation. That is not the job of the police to be enforcing regulation, and the job of Irish Gardaí is to either prevent a breach of the peace or to restore the peace. It's not their job to be interfering in regulations. So a good Garda at that point should turn around and walk away from you. A bad Garda at that point will try and provoke a breach of the peace. He will encroach in your space. He will attempt to make accusations. He may slander you, and he will try to get you to breach the peace. Don't do it, and tell the Garda instead that you're going to make a complaint about him for being reckless as to whether or not the breach of the peace occurs. So what you do is you go onto the GSOC website, you either download the form and print it off, or you can actually fill it out online. It's quite straightforward. And you make a complaint initially about the approach, that the approach from the Garda under COVID-19 legislation is illegal. It's a regulation, not a law. So the Garda should not have approached you in the first place regarding the regulation. If the Garda did approach you regarding the regulation and then tried to provoke the breach of the peace, you need to make a separate complaint about a Garda being reckless as to whether or not a breach of the peace occurs. Okay, the lockdown is over. If we stand together and do this, the Gardaí will be rendered powerless. And the Gardaí are powerless anyway. They're just being used by the government as a weapon in order to enforce bogus legislation. It's an affront to Article 15.4 of the Constitution if it's a law, and now that they're calling it a regulation, it's unenforceable by the Gardaí. So the lockdown is over if we stand together. So there's a protest on Saturday at 1 p.m. outside RTE. It's been run by Jim O'Doherty, John Waters and David O'Reilly. You'll get another opportunity to vent your frustration at RTE, who are the propaganda wing for all of this bogus carry-on that our government has used to destroy our economy on behalf of the globalist elites. So you may not agree with Jim on a lot of things. You may not agree with John Waters or even David, but it's not about conformity. It's not about supporting people you agree with entirely. This is a republic. You are allowed to disagree. It's healthy to be disagreeing with people. Jim O'Doherty is the only person I know that has brought down 2 police chiefs in this country. She also provided a basis for whistleblower cops to be able to get justice. That woman is an extraordinary lady, and she has access to information that will, in the future, help restore our republic. So you don't have to agree with everybody all the time. That's communism. You know, that's ideological dogma. You just, if you agree with some of the things that Gemma is saying, and you have to agree with her on corruption, she's as sharp as a tack on corruption, then be at RTE at 1 p.m. on Saturday the 29th. You can get a bus, the 46 or the 46A from O'Connell Street, straight out there. It'll take you to the gates. It'll take you directly to the gates of RTE. So I just want to go over that again from the point of view of what's actually happened. Our Oireachtas, which is the legislative branch of government, wrote a law that they then broke. And while they were in the process of writing that law, they were conspiring to break the law in a group called the Oireachtas Golfing Society. So the Oireachtas were conspiring to break the law that the Oireachtas was writing. It is insane what's going on in this country. Then to top it off, the executive branch of our government, the government is the executive branch. They changed how we talk about the laws now, and instead we talk about them as regulations. And that was to stop the Gardaí from being able to arrest their cohort in their elitist cabal for breaking the law in the Oireachtas. The Oireachtas society, I can't fathom this corruption. It's nuts. Ireland, you have to stand up to these people. You have to show them that you're pushing back. You have to show the Gardaí that you will not allow them to abuse you. You will not allow them to abuse your children. The youth are committing suicide at an extraordinary rate. They want us now administer a rushed vaccine to your children on Monday in school. How many times do we have to have a medical scandal in this country before we realise that you can't rush things medically? It's raw mesh. Children don't die from coronavirus. It has never happened. It hasn't happened. Children don't die from the flu. You know? And instead, we're going to allow the Oireachtas to conspire to break the law that they were writing while they were writing it. I'm asking you, come to RTE on Saturday. It's another opportunity to organise and show you're standing up to this government. Thanks.